Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and today I'm coming at you with a skill build to show off. Now I know, oh my gosh, gasp, shock, outrage. Write it, print it, sell it, that's right, your boy is finally dabbling in some skill builds. Now this is obviously not the very first skill build I've ever run in the division. I've certainly used them plenty before, and I think you can go back and find videos of that years ago. But it's true, and if you watch my content you'll know that I tend to much prefer gun builds, and that's simply because I find the gunplay in the Division 2 and the Division franchise overall to be so fun and compelling. But it is no secret that skill builds are also very popular within the Division community and player base, and they're super effective. So I figured it was high time for me to put together a quote-unquote meta skill build for PvE, or just a very strong one, and showcase that to you all for people who want a bit of an idea of what they could potentially pursue in that realm. So as you'll see in the gameplay, this build is nothing inventive. I'm going off of the charts and what people have already discovered is super good, and I have to give big credit to my buddy Darth. I will leave a link for his socials down below. I checked in with him to get a kind of a reference on what some good ideas for a skill build are, and I built off of that a little bit. But like I said, this build is super effective, super fun, and if you want a skill build option, this is going to serve you very well in the Division 2's current endgame. So enough talking, let's get into the breakdown. Here you go. And this is the build. Now, the first thing that I wanted to point out before, getting into all the individual pieces is that I thought it would be refreshing to kind of show a build that is not completely min-maxed. Now, for the most part, I do have the roles that I want to cross this, but as you can see, I don't have any expertise on any of my skills or weapons, and not a lot of my stats across the different pieces are maxed out. And so I think from time to time, it's important to show that despite those limitations, you can still have a really strong build, like I said, as you'll see in the gameplay. And I don't even have an armor core rolled on here, which is silly because I have technician, which is giving me a free skill tier, so I can still do that. So the point is, there's still upgrades to be made to this, but for now, this is the setup. For my primary, I'm running the capacitor, which should be no surprise. This is an excellent gun to pair with skill builds. The reason being, the talent basically lets you build up stacks every time you shoot an enemy that gives you additional skill damage, and you get very high base damage because it gets a scaling weapon damage buff based on how many skill tiers you have. If you don't have this weapon, it comes from the Summit game mode. You can search up a quick 5-minute guide. It is very easy to get, so I definitely recommend going after it if you do not have it. Alternatively though, I would recommend using a sidearm with the in-sync weapon talent, and that will also give you good amounts of damage in that regard. For your secondary, feel free to use whatever you like. I'm choosing to use a shotgun, and the talent that I want on here is actually Future Perfect. That will allow me to get periods of overcharge for my skills, which gives them even more damage, so that would be really beneficial to have. But like I said, this build is still a work in progress. I don't yet have the roll to put on here, but that is what I would ideally want, is a weapon of some kind with Future Perfect. Then for your pistol, use whatever you like. I have the TDI card, which is a very popular one to use with skill builds because it gives you that skill tier. Right now I don't need that bonus because I'm already at 6, but you could use something where you have 5 skill tiers and an armor core, and you use this to get 6 when you want it. You can mess around with that, and like I said, use whatever you like. Moving on to the gear, let's start with the mask. I have my first of 2 pieces of Hannah U, which in total give me 10% skill haste and 10% skill damage. We'll get to this a bit later on, but you can alternatively run something like 1 piece of Wyvern and then 1 piece of something else, because the skill damage is really what is most beneficial. The skill haste is just kind of extra bonus. But on here we have a skill tier, skill haste, skill damage, and a protection from elites mod. Now that mod choice might be popular with some, maybe not with others. It's totally up to you. If you want to run something like skill duration or skill haste in that slot, you can. I just figured that the stats are already so strong on my 2 skills, which is the striker drone and the assault turret, that having a bit of extra protection in that high level PvE content is going to feel quite nice, especially once I do have that armor roll. So I prefer to have those, but like I said, use whatever you like there. Moving on to the chest piece, we have our first of 3 pieces of Empress International. In total, that's giving us 10% skill haste, 10% skill damage, and 10% skill efficiency. And if you don't know, skill efficiency is the equivalent of weapon handling for skills, so it gives you, for every 1% of that you have, you get 1% skill damage, health, duration, repair skill, status effects, all skill related bonuses. And that's why Empress is such a popular brand set to use with skill builds, because that stat is so valuable. On here we got 1 skill tier, skill damage, skill haste, another protection from elites mod, and then kinetic momentum for the talent. This is certainly not the only talent that you can run on a skill build like this for the chest piece slot. Some people even like to run glass cannon because it gives you such a big damage spike. I, however, think that since we already have low amounts of survivability and armor, I would rather just get a, moderate damage boost. And kinetic is still very good. It gives you those stacks when you have skills that are active or not on cooldown, and so for these two skills, like I said, the assault turret and the striker drone that are up for so long, they build those stacks quick and they keep them the whole time they're in combat. So it's very useful. Like I said, recommend this if you want something that is very reliable. Onto the holster, we are using the exotic waveform. This comes with one skill tier, skill damage, skill haste, and the talent of alternating current. Basically, it just gives you extra skill damage that is then shared on a fluctuating period between your two skills. So because I'm using two damage skills that both rely on the same bonuses, this builds right in and it just shifts that current between the two of what's going to have more damage, and that'll just play out in combat naturally. It's a great exotic that pairs super well with this kind of build, so definitely recommend that. Onto the backpack, second piece of Empress. On here we got skill tier, skill damage, skill haste, protection from elites, and tech support. Again, this is not the only skill-based talent that you can run here. You could run something like combined arms, but I really like tech support because we are constantly getting kills with our skills, and when that happens, you get 25% damage for 25 seconds. It is not a talent that you're going to have to manage or think about. It's just going to happen as you use this build. And for these types of builds, I think that is the most beneficial thing to have. Onto the gloves, third and final piece of Empress. On here we got a skill tier, skill damage, and skill haste. And our second and final piece of Hannah Yu on the knee pads here for skill tier, skill damage, and skill haste. On to the skills, which we have already talked a lot about by now, but firstly we have the striker drone. Of course it is at 6 skill tier, so it's giving us those stats and bonuses. The mods I've got on here are duration, health, and damage. These are going to be very minor upgrades. Like, as long as you have the pieces that are making this skill itself stronger, that's all that's going to really matter. But use whatever applicable mods and bonuses you think are going to help you out the most. And then, of course, we've got our assault turret. These two skills in combination work great. The assault turret is obviously stationary, so anything that gets close to you, it's going to mow down, and the striker drone can go around and get any of those outliers while you are shooting your capacitor and building up those stacks. So it's a really great synergy and combination overall. For the mods on this one, we have health, damage, and skill haste. Again, use whatever you have and is most applicable. And lastly, for a specialization, we have technician. I definitely recommend this. It's based around skills, right? So you're going to get a lot of bonuses that apply. The main two reasons are you get the free skill tier, which again, I don't currently have rolled on the build, but I need to put an armor core on, so I still have 6 skill tiers and I'm utilizing that. And you have the node, which gives you that extra 10% skill damage, which while not huge, it's still going to be a nice little boost. And I can't think of any other specialization that will fit better for the purposes of this build. And there you have it, everybody. That is the skill build and the first skill build that I've put together in probably a few years. But I've been having a ton of fun with it. It is definitely a very viable and alternative playstyle to gun builds. So, like I said, if you're new to the Division 2 and you want a very reliable first endgame build to go for, this is a great one. Or if you're more like myself and you're just looking for that refreshment in gameplay, this is a really great option to go for. I'm sure there are far more specialized setups you could go for, and I might dabble with some of that in the future, but for now, this is just your very, standard, cookie cutter, in a sense, skill build. But it's going to be very reliable. It's going to get you through content all the way up to heroic, probably legendary. I need to try that out. Bottom line, your needs will be met, and I hope you enjoy it. Let me know your thoughts on everything we talked about here. If you are a regular skill build user, what kind of setups do you typically run with? What sort of advice would you give to people who want to go into that realm? And what are your thoughts and critiques on this build here? Whatever you're thinking, as always, leave it down below. I look forward to reading through your thoughts. And that's going to do it for me today, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. RogueGold. Ow.